So, this is what we're going to be looking at first of all. We're looking at the story in the Daily Mail. This was from Thursday. New law to stop school strike mayhem. For those of you who don't know, here in the UK, there was a massive set of strikes, an informal general strike, and the Daily Mail decided to do some reporting on it. And I thought I'd just comment on the way that they did their reporting, because their framing is dishonest in what it leaves out. New law to stop school strike mayhem. Rishi ready to step in to ban unions from leaving parents in limbo. This is the article. It's written out here. And the first thing to note is that all of this is about not the issue itself, not the strike, but about the fact that unions are not obligated, and members of unions are not obligated to reveal to their employers when they are about to go on strike. Tens of thousands of teachers who are members of the National Education Union, NEU, left their posts and joined picket lines yesterday. In a general strike in all but names, dubbed Walkout Wednesday, they joined 100,000 civil servants, 70,000 university staff, and thousands of train drivers and border force officers in staging industrial action. Now, the strike caused misery for parents, many of whom were left in limbo after the union encouraged teachers to refuse to tell heads in advance whether they would turn up for work. Now, all of this, as much as you might want to talk about it, all of it is a distraction. Because in amongst all of this, they've given very little voice to the people who are actually involved in this. They've given very little voice to the unions themselves. They've mentioned that Mick Lynch said, "We are the working class and we are back," but that's not all that Mick Lynch said that day. And certainly people who were speaking on behalf of the NEU haven't really been given a voice in this article at all. They don't tell you who the government source is. So they're not telling you who the government source is, which is always a red flag. But the government source said it's ridiculous that unions are able to add to the disruption caused by refusing to provide the basic information needed to make contingency plans. I would say that what's more concerning is the amount of underfunding that schools have gone through in the past few years. Because all of this frames it in such a way as, the unions are just causing some disruption. No. The unions are causing necessary disruption when you look at the situation with schools and funding. Most schools now do not have the funding to operate. They're barely hitting their targets for recruitment, and you're finding that teachers across different subjects are not able to teach because certain subjects just have so few teachers now. So they're having to cover for the lack of staff because teachers' pay isn't competitive. Now, it's not just about their pay, of course, it's also about the conditions for the students. Because although we have really restrictive strike laws here in the UK, which means that teachers can't actually go on strike over the conditions that students are facing, they can go on strike over their pay. So that's what they're doing. But their pay has a knock-on effect. Why does it have a knock-on effect? Well, because of something that the Daily Mail doesn't mention. And it's worth mentioning, because this is from the National Education Union website, and this is about the strike action. The government has shortchanged them for over a decade with significant real terms cuts to pay and persistently unfunded rises which schools cannot afford. So, whenever you see Conservative politicians going on TV and they're saying, we've offered the teachers a 5% pay rise, no, they haven't offered teachers a 5% pay rise. What they've done is they've said to schools, if you want to give teachers a 5% pay rise, you can do that. But it's coming out of your own budget. They haven't increased the school budget. So effectively what you've got is schools can't afford textbooks, they can't afford school lunches, they can't afford all of the things that you need to operate as a school, because what they're doing is they're having to, in order to increase their teachers' pay, in order to remain competitive, in order for it to remain legal and to stop the unions going after individual schools, they have to take from their own budget. The government is deliberately underfunding them. It's deliberately underfunding them, and as a result, teachers' pay is coming out of the overall school budget. And it's never talked about. The media just don't talk about it. It's like saying to doctors, you can have a pay rise, when you sell your fucking stethoscope. That's what it's like. Neckley in the chat says, is it called a real term pay cut or something? Yes, it's a real term pay cut because inflation is moving much faster than teachers' pay. Teachers' pay has actually gone down in the past few years in real terms. In fact, I can show you. This is what teachers' pay has done since 2010. It's gone straight down. When you take into account inflation, the real terms pay, what their pay actually gets them. And teachers shouldn't be facing a cut like this. So, never mind the whole school budgets thing. It's still bad, even looking at it from just a pay perspective. But of course, it's not just a pay perspective. It's not just about pay. It's about the fact that they are forcing them to take any increase in pay out of the school budget. The question here relates not only to the current budget, but also to what happened during COVID. Because schools went into debt. Most schools went into debt trying to pay for sanitary equipment during the COVID crisis, in the years of the COVID crisis. And the government didn't provide them any extra funding for it. So they've gone into debt. And then they've had to give an increase in teachers' pay. Teachers who, by the way, are overworked, and it's only getting worse because of underfunding, because more and more teachers are leaving the profession. About 40% of teachers currently leave the profession within 10 years of starting their teacher training. 40%. That's far too high. Far too high. And this is affecting kids' education, and kids can see, if you look at any of the coverage of the strikes, kids can see that their education is being affected. The education secretary was on TV telling teachers that they couldn't have a pay rise while wearing a £10,000 Rolex watch. I don't think I've ever held or been within a few feet of a Rolex watch that was worth £10,000. These people are so unbelievably out of touch. So they actually quote from teachers, which is quite nice to see. And this is what I mean. So Kit Wright, 8, joined his mum Alice, an early years teacher, because he wanted to make a difference. He said, hopefully this march will make schools better for me and my friends and better for children in the future. Alice, 46 of Queen's Park, northwest London, said, Kit sees how overworked I am. Taking part in this march is a way we can both show our voice in a powerful way. You've got reports of teachers using food banks all the time. Teachers using food banks, and also kids using food banks. The poverty in this country and the lack of a decent pay increase is absolutely staggering. Absolutely staggering. Education Secretary Ms. Keegan said, one school closure is too many. Well, if you think one school closure is too many, actually fund the schools to be able to cope with the number of students that they have. I think it's worth just mentioning this, because if you read the Daily Mail, this was what you got. You got teachers are causing disruption. Absolutely no explanation as to the underfunding, the lack of pay rise, the effect on kids' education, and the fact that teachers are effectively being told, if you want a pay rise, sell your pencils, sell your textbooks, sell your school lunches, sell your tables, sell the things that you need to be able to function as a school. Schools are being unfunded. The teachers were right to go on strike. And it's not strikes that are going to damage kids' education. It's the underfunding, the continual underfunding that this government has put schools through.